Welcome to Raising Deaf Kids, and today I have very special guests. I'm so excited to talk to you guys. I have author and speaker Valerie James Abbott here with her two girls. Welcome to the podcast, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Do you guys just want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, and maybe even chat kind of a little bit about who you are, your background,
Sure.
your stories?
Sure. I'm Valerie, and I'm a mom, and I live in Richmond, Virginia with my two girls and my husband, Chris. And this has been quite a journey. And I'm now the proud mom of two college-age kids. So this is an exciting time in my life.
You made it.
Yeah.
You made it through what all the rest of us are trying to get to. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I guess I can go next for age order. I'm Mary Clare, I'm 22, and I'm a rising senior at Hollins University, the older sister.
And my name's Bridie. I'm gonna be a sophomore at Longwood University, and I'm the hard of hearing one. So yeah.
Awesome. Do you mind sharing just a little bit about kind of your story with hearing loss? Valerie, you can chime in too for the part she may not remember because she was little.
I really don't remember a lot of it, but I have Connection 26. We don't know which parent I got it inherited from. That's about all I know. Yeah,
Do you remember?
finish the rest.
Do you remember a time, because there was a time, do you remember a time before?
No.
No?
No.
Yeah, so Bridie was diagnosed just before her third birthday. And it was because of some wonky language that she was speaking, this other version of English that we now know was a very distorted version of English that she was fluent in speaking, and we were all pretty adept at understanding her. And it was when she was enrolled in preschool that the preschool teachers were like, what is this? And they recommended a speech evaluation, and that's what led to figuring out that she had lost her hearing mysteriously.
Okay. Yeah, that is definitely. And, I feel like this is where schools step in and can be so helpful to us as parents too, because I feel like that is true. I have a 3-year-old who actually speaks really well, but I remember when the kids were little and while they're learning language, they do kind of call things different things. And you do kind of get used to it as a family. And I think until you get that outside voice and information, you kind of don't know what you don't know, you know what I mean? Because I know that a lot of parents, and maybe you can speak to this, Valerie, a lot of parents who have kids with a little bit later onset hearing loss, they get really down on themselves because they didn't recognize it at first, or they went too long without getting aided or without support, and the parents are like, I just didn't know. Maybe like you, they had older kids who didn't have hearing loss, and so it wasn't something that they were looking for. And then parents who I've talked to get really down on themselves about not recognizing that. How could I not recognize this in my child? What would you say, Valerie, to those parents who are like, I can't believe we didn't do this sooner. I can't believe I didn't know.
So that is for those of us that experience, whether it's late onset hearing loss in one of their children or just late identification, where it's not identified until far later than the typical child with congenital hearing loss, which generally that's pretty early on in the process. That the best way I know to describe our grieving process was a backpack full of panic and guilt. Panic because no one could tell us how this happened, when it happened, why it happened, what it might be connected to. And the other piece of it being guilt on how on earth did we not notice this? And granted, we were a very busy family of 4. Mary Clare was 5, 6 at the time, right? So, she was a busybody, and then we've got this preschooler that's running around, and both of us were working. So the idea that we missed this, and it was looking back very obvious, that guilt stayed with us for a long, long time. And I think that's very normal. It's very painful, but it's very normal. And I do feel that after she turned around and her language skills improved pretty dramatically because we invested, all of us invested time in helping her acquire language, that feeling of guilt softened some.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think the way that you described it is like a backpack of like panic and guilt is so true. I see a lot of parents facing that. It was a little bit different for us because our kids were born with hearing loss, and so they were identified by about like 2 months of age. So we like started the process kind of from the beginning with the hearing loss. But I can imagine, coming on later in your child or being later identified in your child, kind of having that guilt. And I think you said it really great that it kind of over time dissipates. I think, you and I have talked about this before. I really like to give parents permission to kind of feel those feelings and work through them, because I think so much, and maybe you could talk to that a little bit, is true. We're all busy families. We all have kids. When your kids are identified, they are probably little preschoolers, or toddlers or even babies. And it's a busy time having the little ones, everybody's working, everybody's doing stuff. And sometimes I think parents don't take the time to feel those feelings. You know what I mean? I
Well,
feel like I didn't at the beginning.
they feel guilty for feeling guilty. It's
Yeah.
layer upon layer. They feel guilty for feeling
Right.
guilty, or they feel guilty for saying, I don't want this. I don't know how to do this. I don't want to do this. There's a lot of in those early months and years, there's a lot of unexpected emotions that we're wrestling with. In addition to trying to raise a family. And one of the things looking back that's so clear to me now that was completely not clear to me is the incredible benefit we had in our family of having an older sibling. And that is because she was a great language role model. And we had no idea what a gift that was, but it's clear now. One of the reasons why Bridie turned around as quickly as she did was because as a whole family, without being told, all right, this is the way we're doing things now, you need to, we need to be maximizing language acquisition 24/7, that being a family of 4 was a benefit for us because we had an older sibling with a really great language foundation. That was the bar that we were reaching for with Bridie.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think that is true. A lot of parents don't realize kind of what a help the older kids can be if they have older kids and their younger kids have hearing loss. I kind of wish I had had that with my kids too. Now that you're saying that, because it was my 2 oldest that have the hearing loss, so we did that first, and now my third one, she's 3. She doesn't have the hearing loss. And she is still kind of a language model for her brothers because they're still a little bit behind. And she speaks very well because she had hearing from the beginning. So even though she's younger, she's still a little bit of a model for them as well. And she's becoming such a good little advocate for them, which I didn't expect and didn't really tell her to, but she'll come tell me when they both wear cochlears, their cochlears are off, or when they like throw their headbands off, because they do sometimes. She'll like come bring them to me, and it's so kind of cool to watch because I didn't really like specifically explain that to her. I think she's just watched us doing that. Which I would love to hear from Marie Claire about, how you felt growing up with a sibling with hearing loss. Was there any differences in your family, or kind of like, how did you feel and navigate that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I don't know what it's like to grow up with a sibling that doesn't have hearing loss, so I can't really say that I have that experience, but I do remember around the time of her getting diagnosed and getting hearing aids, that was kind of a several month process. The things that I remember from that time in my mind had nothing to do with her hearing loss. Like my first sleepover with a friend was the night before she had a procedure to go in and check, right? The
sedated ABR.
Right. So I, to me, that was my first sleepover, not, oh, my sister's going in really early in the morning for a test and my parents can't wake me up at 5 a.m. So I remember spending a little bit less time at home during that period, but it was all like, oh, I'm going to hang out with a friend. And quite frankly, I don't think I view Bridie any different than I would if she did not have hearing loss. I all throughout, our childhood and growing up, I would forget all the time that she did. So yeah, I don't view her as, oh, she's this person with hearing loss and I have to treat her any differently. She's my little sister and I argue with her and get along with her as I would if she had full hearing. So yeah.
Your sisters, yeah. Well, that's really great to hear because I know that I hear from a lot of parents who have kids who have hearing loss and have kids who don't have hearing loss. And I know there's a lot of concern and maybe even a little bit of fear with parents that the sibling that does not have the hearing loss is going to feel like the sibling with the hearing loss is getting more attention. Because naturally they would just need more. They would maybe need more therapy appointments. It depends on, the hearing loss in the situation. We have people from all types listening here. But they are really concerned about the hearing siblings actually feeling like left out or feeling like the other one is getting more attention. But it doesn't sound like that you had that in your family, which is great. Maybe you guys, the girls and Valerie, can talk to, were there any things that you did in your house to help Bridie get language better, get language faster? Maybe that incorporated the whole family. Maybe you guys can give some tips to parents about incorporating the hearing and the non-hearing siblings together.
Well, let's talk about the Ling 6 sounds.
Perfect. Great place to start.
Right. And so we were not familiar with the Ling 6 sounds. We were just told that every morning, kind of when she was putting her hearing aids in, that we were supposed to be doing this to check for understanding. And without saying anything, suddenly that became your thing, where you would.
Yeah. A lot of the therapists that would come to the house or that we would go and see incorporated me into the practices that we would do at home. So it was very much a both of us thing. And I felt like I was being helpful, which is an older sister. That's what you want to feel. So
oh yeah, I'm the oldest, so I get it.
Yeah. But yes, we would do the checks and I would cover my mouth and speak.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, but I remember what we said.
Yeah. So then somebody else in our house changed the Ling 6 to a different version of the Ling 6 just for fun. And then one day, somebody who shall remain unnamed over here shared our version of the Ling 6, which was.
My dad started saying Guinness, Beamish, Murphy's Irish Stout.
Which are, for those of your listeners who aren't aware, those are Irish adult beverages.
Yes.
And so, again, we just kind of incorporated this bizarre new thing in our family into our everyday life. And it was a little bit of an embarrassing moment when, she goes in and demonstrates her knowledge of the Abbott family Ling 6, which was Irish adult beverages. Yeah.
Yeah. To the therapist. That sounds
and their eyeballs
correct.
were like, okay.
They're like, what are your family doing? You gotta have some fun with it though, That sounds fun. Yeah, Bridie, I would love to hear from your perspective too. What was it like, being, I guess, the person with hearing loss in your family? Did you feel any different? What do you think your family did well for you?
I don't really feel any different, and if anything, I just use it to my advantage.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Like my mom asked me to clean my room. I'm like, I did not hear you say that. Or dishes, didn't hear that. It's not my fault. You can't really argue with me on it. But I mean, I don't really remember them. I remember some speech therapist sessions. I just remember making a sticker book, and somehow that worked. So I appreciate that. But I don't really remember much of learning how to talk, but because I was always talkative, it just wasn't always English or words at all. But yeah, no, I never really feel any different. I just use it to my advantage. I like kind of feel bad for them that they don't have that.
So we did have an interesting recent thing. Can I share the genetic testing?
Yeah.
So we
This
had
one's
the
kind of
opportunity to go through genetic testing again. So 15 years
Okay.
later, science has changed, knowledge of genetics has changed. And so
Yeah.
Bridie had the opportunity to go through genetic testing again for Connexin 26 to see if there was anything else in the mix. And that didn't change. The results of that were identical to the original test, and the kind of the report that came back was almost a spitting image of the original one 15 years ago. But what that did do was make Mary Clare now eligible for free genetic testing, which you had been wanting to have genetic testing for a while.
Yeah, I always knew that like prior to having kids of my own that I would go through genetic testing to test for Connexin 26, not because it would change any like thought of having kids, but just so that if I knew I was a carrier, that I would kind of keep a closer eye on that, or have regular testing for them. And so I qualified to have the genetic testing done for free, which was great. And I did it, and they said, okay, the results should be in like 2 weeks. And the genetic counselor called me and told me that I did not have Connexin 26. And so I texted, I think I tried to call Bridie, but she didn't answer her phone. And so I texted her and I was like, hey, I got the results back of my genetic testing and I don't have Connexin 26. And you said something, I wish I had my phone, I would pull up the screenshot, but you were like, oh, well, that's kind of disappointing. And then you were like, well, maybe not like disappointing, but I mean, yay, congratulations. Like, it was this funny like conversation.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's
yeah,
not
it
a
was
bad
very-
thing to
it's
have
not a
it, but
bad
it's not
thing.
a good thing. Like it is what it is. But,
Yeah.
I mean, little baby hearing aids
I know.
so
It's
cute.
like, oh, dang, they are really cute.
So how did you feel about that? How did you feel when the genetic counselor was like, so the results are in and you don't have this in your genetic makeup?
In a way, it was kind of disappointing just because I do think from I'm a big planner and I've known my firstborn's name since I was like 12.
Oh my gosh, you and I, yes. Like we are like the model oldest children. My
Yes.
family would say that too.
Yes.
They would say like Elaine at age 6 had her entire life planned out. Like
Yeah,
I get it, me too.
That's me. So I don't know that disappointed is the right word, but I did think like if anyone on planet Earth was going to be a carrier, or have a higher risk of having children with hearing loss due to Connexin 26, I felt like I was more prepared than the average person walking around. Having watched my parents go through that and, being raised with a sister with hearing loss, like, if they were to pull a number out of a pot for someone to have, a child with hearing loss, I felt like would have been a good candidate, I guess. that would have been kind of neat. So what they did say was there is technically a higher chance of me having a kid with hearing loss than there is anyone else because of Bridie's hearing loss. But in terms of it being Connexin 26, that risk is the same as anyone else walking around the earth. So yeah, there was like a little bit of, oh man, like that. I always kind of thought that was a possibility,
Yeah.
but
It's saving a big coin though.
yeah. Yeah, I'm probably saving some money that way, but
Yeah, no, I love that reaction because I feel like that is not a reaction that people get often, that they were like, oh man, I was kind of hoping for the baby hearing aids and stuff because I mean, most parents are shocked and have never had this happen before. We certainly were. Hearing loss has never been in our family except for in our 2 boys. So most parents and most people have like a very different response, but I feel like growing up with another deaf person in the household or hard of hearing, I'm sorry, that kind of like demystifies
Mhm.
kind of the process of hearing loss, what it's like having hearing loss, because I think at the core of it, parents are just kind of scared because they don't know what the possibility is for their kids. Like, you know, when your kids are identified when they're babies or they're young, they don't have older kids like you are. You know, they haven't gone through the process and they don't know, because their kids are so young, like what the possibilities are for their kids, that their kids are really going to be okay, that deaf and hard of hearing people and people with hearing loss who are adults like walk this earth every day. They have jobs, they are very successful, they, you know, navigate Starbucks perfectly fine, like that this is possible. But when you're sitting there with your baby, you don't know this yet.
Mhm.
And so it's really great to hear how your perspective is a little bit different and the process of hearing loss is kind of demystified for you and like not as big of a deal, maybe because you grew up with a sister with hearing loss and you kind of know what it's like and you know that it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal for you. Would you say that that would be
Yeah, I think a lot
that
of
process?
the kind of panic or fear feelings that parents have, and obviously I'm not a parent, but um that I imagine my parents had, and other parents who are not familiar with the deaf or hard of hearing world, and you know, all of a sudden have this diagnosis that they're not really sure what to do with. I don't think that the same feelings of panic and fear I would have, like if I, you know, were to have a baby and it too, they're diagnosed with hearing loss. I, you know, I have watched a successful story of someone with hearing loss who's, you know, thriving. So, um, would I still be, you know, a big advocate and worried about some things? Sure, but it would not be the same, like, oh gosh, what's going to happen now? And whatever. I've seen it work fine, I guess is the way to put that. Like Bridie's a normal kid. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I was just wondering, Bridie, if you can tell. So a lot of parents who listen to this podcast are a little bit newer to hearing loss with their kids. So Bridie and even Valerie, you could jump into so if parents kind of like just found out that their child has hearing loss, what is something that they can start doing now, or what should they start doing at the beginning to help, you know, their child like through adulthood, I guess?
I mean, I don't know about start doing. I think that's more for my mom to say, but I would say like you don't need to worry as much as you probably are. Um, I think I'm not really supposed to be able to hear the violin, and I've played the violin since I was 5. And I played the upright bass. That's the lowest, so I can't hear that. I can also hear the violin, but like our world is not over, your world's not over. And they might be lying to you when they're older and they said they didn't hear you. But you can't really blame that on them. But my mom can tell you what to start doing, I guess.
You know, one of the things that we did very, very early on was my husband and I, we faked it until we would make it. And we felt very strongly that we somehow figure out a way to be as positive about this experience as we could. And our process for figuring out what was going on went actually very quickly. And so one of the things that we did was when she first got her hearing aids that first time, and we picked them up and we got the molds, we had pre-ordered color coordinated cupcakes, and we had a little party, a hearing aid party with the neighbors and a couple of friends. And they got to come up close and look at them, and they were pink and they had like edible sparkles. And we did that every time she got new molds for a very, very long time, like maybe 6 or 7 years. I mean, it was a long
Oh,
time.
wow.
We ate a lot of cupcakes in the beginning.
That sounds great to me.
Right.
I bet my
And-
kids would
yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was an opportunity for us to say, okay, this is for my husband and I to say, okay, we are still unsettled. We are still not sure what to do about this. We're still not sure how to feel about this, but we are going to celebrate the fact that we figured out what's going on. We are going to celebrate the fact that there's technology that can be helpful. We are going to celebrate the fact that this is just a part of your journey, of yourself, of our family's experience. We are going to celebrate everything we can think of to celebrate frequently, and be reminded frequently that we need to be as positive about this as possible. And for us, color coordinated cupcakes with other people made talking about them normal, celebrating them normal, asking questions about them normal. And I really do think that that mentality is part of why Bridie loved them. I mean, she still loves them. We never had an issue getting them in her head unless she really didn't want to hear my voice, and then she really didn't want to put them in her head.
I'm not ready yet.
What?
I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, I'm not ready yet. She would say, I'm not ready yet, which really meant I'm not ready for you.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for you. I'm not ready for all the things you need to tell me I need to do. So I think that, for the families who are just beginning this experience, whether it is with using technology, whether it is with using American Sign Language, cued speech, a mixture of these things, a combination, celebrating in whatever way seems to make sense, and doing so frequently, because some of us need to fake it until we make it. And then we realize, actually, there is a lot to celebrate. There is a lot to be excited about. And would you change anything if you could go back?
No, I don't think I would. Maybe continuing the cupcakes for a little longer. It's okay.
I think
That sounds right.
I think most people would also be surprised to hear that Bridie doesn't. I mean, I don't know. Do you still feel that way? Would you, if there's some kind of miracle cure out there and they could restore your hearing to typical? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I probably wouldn't, just because like I had gotten so used to, I guess, living like this, because I don't really remember not living like this, but like I get the most peaceful sleeps. Like I can't hear thunderstorms. I have a strobe light in my room for emergencies, so and that works. It's gone off before. But I would not really change anything. I kind of like it. I've never, that I can recall, really been bullied for it. And if I have, I'm like, wow, you have like nothing better to do with your life. It's like you're bullying someone with glasses. I'm like, okay, like I can just turn it off and then not hear you. Like I can do more things than the average person can. But I do like, if like your child does wear hearing aids or cochlear implants, I've always been kind of verbal about not going with the skin colored or the nude hearing aids or cochlear implants. I've always had lots of colors and sparkles, and sometimes like I have another kid in the neighborhood who had clear molds, and he saw that I had colors. He's like, wait, you can have colors? And now he has colors all the time. That just happened with another little girl. But even like cochlear implants, I work at a camp for kids with hearing aids and cochlear implants, Baja, all of it, and all of them are decked out. Like one of them had Ninja Turtle stickers on their cochlears, another one unicorns. Like I wouldn't try and hide it. Like you're gonna notice them either way, but a lot of kids don't really like bully your kid. I know that was probably a big worry of yours, but I never had really any issues with that. And if I did, I was like, I mean, if that brings you joy, then I'm glad I can. Really don't care what people say. Which I think my parents played a big part in. Like it's normal. It's like if you're wearing glasses, like I really don't see a difference. Like I forget that I wear them all the time. I don't feel them in my ears. Like it's not painful. So yeah.
Well, I love that insight, Bridie. And you are actually the second person who has talked to me about not doing the skin color. So I talked to, a couple of weeks ago, the author of the Mighty Mila books, and she was talking about her daughter Mila, who is younger than you guys, and how they have two sets of cochlears. They have one set that does like blend in with her hair, and one set that's white that does not blend in because she has like brownish hair. And then they let Mila like choose what she wants, and she her mom was saying that a lot of times she goes with the white one, which completely stands out, and she's like so proud of it, like no problem. Every now and then she'll choose the, brown one that blends in more, but mostly she goes with the one that stands out. And I think that's so important for you guys as kind of like older kids, young adults, older adults, older than like kids my age, to see, adults being so proud of, their hearing aids, their cochlears, wanting them to stand out instead of hiding them. I think that is such a good example for the younger kids that are coming through. And the fact that you work at a camp with kids with hearing loss is really fantastic. I would love for my kids to kind of have like older kids like that, or, older people, adults to look to that kind of show them, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. It's no big deal. You can be proud of them. I think that is so powerful for the generations coming up to kind of have that mentorship, whether or not you realize you're doing it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you guys say, besides maybe like the Ling 6 thing, which was pretty funny, what would be like your funniest thing that like happens with hearing loss growing up in your family?
I have a
I got
response to this.
that one really
Or
fast.
weirdest or whatever. Yeah, because I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely have them with my kids.
Yeah. Well, starting grade school, I was in kindergarten, and I used the FM system so that I could hear the teachers better and make sure that I'm actually hearing them. And it travels, doesn't really have a far distance where it doesn't break down or break up because it's so far. So it reaches the bathroom. And my kindergarten teacher went to the restroom one day, and she was wearing the FM system, and she started singing the ABCs, I think was what happened. And like, there's been a lot of bathroom incidents. At the beginning of the year, like I always tell them, I'm like, I will pretend I didn't hear anything, but like I can hear you in the bathroom, so please take it off. But one time my 5th grade teacher had, I thought, an important phone call she took outside, and she said, okay, I'm on my way home right now. And I thought like one of her kids was dying. Like I was like crying in my 5th grade classroom. Like I hear her conversation, like her kid's going to the hospital. Her kid just had strep. But yeah, I just tell them if it's important just to take it off. I heard a lot of things I shouldn't have. I think it's good for my language.
Mhm, mhm.
It's gonna be your
This is also not just you as a kid. We have this still, where Bridie will say like a term or a word
Oh,
that most of them have now become like family inside jokes, but she will say it with full confidence as the correct word for something or term for something. The most recent one has been the part of where people like keep their owner's manuals in a car, the glove compartment, which
Mhm.
we have started calling the glove department.
Oh.
So yeah, there's been
Yeah.
a lot of words over the years that our family now does not say correctly, but it was because
Aw.
I mean it's been like recently that she will say things.
and they're like, wait, what? I'm like, the glove department.
Yeah, the glove department.
It's in the glove department, and we're like, what?
Yeah, we have no idea what you're talking about, but now we call them that because it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But we come across those words pretty regularly, even still, that she'll say, like, it's the normal word because you don't
Yeah.
realize that it's not, and then like, what are you talking about? Like, she'll know what you're saying. Yeah, those are funny.
Yeah, some of the because she has had the same pediatric audiologist since the very beginning, so for about 15, 16 years, and doing the, the annual test, and they go into the booth and they repeat baseball and softball or whatever, ice cream. And some of the responses that Bridie, when she was younger, when she would get bored of those words, that she would give back, instead of, they'd say, baseball, and she'd recite something back like home run.
Oh, that was really smart.
Yeah. And so those kinds of things, like it really has become just a part of who she is and who we are, and we're not poster children for how to do it. We've just taken one day at a time And there are things we do differently, sure, but there's a lot that we're proud of.
Yeah. Well, and that was my next question. What was your proudest moment?
What was my proudest moment?
Mhm.
I would say, honestly, it was her high school graduation.
Mm.
You didn't think it was gonna happen?
No, see, you can see.
Hey, it's hard. It's
you
hard
know,
getting your kids through school,
it
okay?
is, the my proudest moment was when she graduated from high school and kind of walked across the stage and got her diploma that wasn't really in there because they kind of
Yeah.
pretend it's in there and then you get it later or whatever. It was recognizing just how hard she worked from K through 12, going from starting with an IEP, then going to a 504 plan, then going back to an IEP. School was hard. It was hard. It was hard for all of us, but it was really hard. Parts of it were hard for you. And so seeing her walk across the stage on time, with an advanced diploma, which is a thing in Virginia that many states don't have, and knowing that she's college bound and that she is a really, really good egg. That was really an incredibly proud moment for me, for saying we made it. She made it, we made it.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. School is a long process from kindergarten to 12th grade. And it's a lot of work with your kids with hearing loss. I always say, my kids are having to do like at least twice the work of their hearing peers, and pullouts. And my 5-year-old communicates with ASL, so he's on like a completely different curriculum in school. And yeah, it's a lot. And I think parents feel that as well. And it's a very big part of your child's life is being in school. And I think as a parent, you really want to like get it right for your child. You really want to give them that educational foundation. You want to get the right services. You want to get it right for your child because this is kind of like their whole life. It's kind of like the foundation of the rest of their life, really. Well, I would love to talk about, I'm always encouraging parents to be in the schools more and kind of be more communicative with their IEP team and just kind of be a presence in the school. And so I would love to talk to you about, Valerie, about how much, if you were, but I think you were, in the school with your kids, advocating for them, educating other parents, and how can other parents kind of start getting into more of like a leadership role in their communities.
So when Mary Clare started kindergarten, I kind of jumped into the PTA in part because I was nosy and I wanted to know what's really happening, not just kind of through the grapevine what's happening, and met a really great group of parents that were equally concerned about, education and maximizing the experience for their child. And I do think that for the K through 5 in Virginia, that helped a lot because when Bridie was entering the school system, they already knew who I was. They already knew I had a big mouth and that I would share what was on my mind. And so it was kind of getting her services and having those services implemented really worked well K through 5. That we didn't really have a whole lot of issues with K through 5. And I do think that's in part because I was very involved, not from the IEP mom or the hovering mother of a child with a disability, but just as a parent volunteer in general. That changed a lot with middle school. We moved, middle school is also different because you've got multiple teachers and things, but I do think that being involved in general was a benefit for us, and not just being involved with that or her classroom. Although, I was, to the extent, again, a working mom, has a lot going on. So just I think getting involved in the school in general, especially K-5, can only reap positive things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think like I'm in my kids' school all the time, or I'm talking to parents all the time, especially at, like birthday parties. I, get my kids to go to the birthday parties because I want to see, other kids to see that, my kids with hearing loss do all the regular stuff. Like I really am trying to like normalize it for my kids' like classes that they're in. And going to those birthday parties also gives me a really good opportunity to talk to parents, just like parent to parent. And I really open myself up for answering questions because I'm very open too. No problem. I'm happy to talk about anything. I'm happy to talk about answer questions, especially if it can like educate parents more and they can like help their kids understand more. And so just kind of like being friendly with parents at like birthday parties or like school events and going up and asking about them and seeing how they're doing, they start naturally asking me questions about like, what is hearing loss? What do the cochlear implants do? Can James, my 5-year-old, really talk, or does he sign? Or, what is this like? And I'm able to kind of do that education with the parents. And that kind of like filters down to the kids too. And I think right now they're in my James, my 6-year-old, now 6-year-old, he's going to be repeating kindergarten, and then my older one is going into 3rd grade this year. But they have such like sweet relationships with the kids in their class now, which is really great because we started from kindergarten and they've like moved up with these kids. Just using ASL in the classroom, we, along with their teachers, like let the other kids like let some of their friends take their mini mics around on the playground and like wear them. So
yes, remember that?
yeah, we like get the other kids involved to like normalize hearing loss and just say like this is, no big deal. But also me, along with like the teacher of the deaf and stuff, kind of show other kids like different signs they can use and how to kind of support people with hearing loss without making that person ask, just kind of doing it normally. And we had a really sweet, so my 6-year-old just turned 6 and we had his birthday party over last weekend. And, we were opening presents. One of the kids had to leave and James was busy opening presents and, wasn't looking at him. And he went up and said, "Bye, James." And his dad told his son, "Hey, remember that James is looking at you and, that he's paying attention to you so that he can hear you." And he said that without me having to say it. So this like education does work. And I found that parents and kids, especially like younger kids, they're just curious and they're really open if you come at it in like an open educational way. Would you say that you found that to be true as well?
Absolutely. And what's really, I guess it's not weird, but it does seem a little bit weird, is Mary Claire's done that as the older kid in school too. So she'll see, a kid that, or a younger student that's wearing cochlear implant, and she knows that it's perfectly okay to when, especially if it's Mickey Mouse that's on there, to be like, "Oh my gosh, cool! I love Mickey too." And there's a reason why Mickey Mouse is on there, because they're a Mickey Mouse fan. And so of course you would, and so there are times when all of us, have educated other people in the school, whether it's parent to parent, student to student, parent to student, student to parent. We've seen that just being active people in our schools, that we've been able to educate and advocate in just a very delicate, nice,
Yeah.
soft evangelical way. Would you agree with that? Do you have any
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think a lot of people are curious about like they have questions, and it comes from a place of curiosity and wanting to, I think, if somebody had a question about Bridie's hearing aids and came to me and asked me about them, I think it would come from I want to interact with your sister, like, oh, I want to get to know your sister better, not like, oh, this bad place. And being a safe place for people to ask questions, I think, and being approachable is important. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's great for parents to hear, because sometimes I know I hear from parents, there's a little bit of like education fatigue where they're
Yeah.
like people asking questions all the time. But I mean, I don't have that. I guess I just like talking to people a lot. And I always feel like the more education, the better. Like, as long as someone is coming at me with like, true curiosity, which everyone is. I've personally like, never had a bad experience. That may not be everybody's, story, but everybody that I've come to have talked to have just been curious. But you don't just want to walk up to someone with hearing loss and just ask them. I mean, you have to ask the right people, and that is true. So just opening yourself up, as like you were saying, Marie Claire, that safe place that people can come and ask questions and you will answer them like truthfully and honestly and with grace, I think is the best way to kind of like spread the information throughout the school. And then the great part is like if parents like talk to their kids, and then kids also come home and like talk to their parents about it too. And so you're really educating the entire family. Sounds like that's your experience too.
Yeah.
And
And
Go
one
ahead.
of the things that we as a family have kind of embraced is we don't get caught up with the terminology. And I know that that language and terminology and words matter. And some families feel very firm in different words that are used to describe their children or themselves. And so when someone asks me, when did you find out that Bridie was deaf? I don't say, well, she's not deaf. I might say, well, we learned that her hearing loss was whatever, and I just kind of keep going. So for us, we don't, people use all different terms. People use the term hearing loss, people use the word hard of hearing, people use the word deaf. We kind of just go with that, keep going with that conversation versus trying to instill what, the terminology that we think is right. And part of that is because we want people to keep coming to us to answer questions, to ask questions and to have a conversation. Do you have a thought on, do people tell you that or ask you like, are you deaf or?
That didn't really happen until college. And then some people like kind of made it my personality trait, like, oh, here's my friend Bridie, she's deaf. I'm like, this is just so weird. Like, I mean, one, like I've always called myself hard of hearing if I brought it up, but I never bring it up. Like if I meet someone, I'm like, hi, I'm Bridie, I wear hearing aids. Like they kind of just figure it out on their own. Or if I say what a million times, I'll be like, oh, it's because of this. They're like 3 years into the friendship, they're like, wait, what? But that I really only had that in college, and then I was like, all right, guys, like that's not the only thing about me that's interesting, I hope. And they're like, oh yeah, no. And so now, well, yeah, now it's just here's Bridie. I'm like, thank you. It was just kind
Yeah.
of, I was just like, I've never been introduced as, oh, this is my friend Bridie, she's deaf. I'm like, yeah, like I am, but like that's not that interesting.
It would be like,
You can kind of tell who's been around somebody who's like never seen someone with hearing aids or cochlear implants or like whatever it is. And I'm like, that's just not that deep. Like, would you introduce your friend? Oh, this is my friend Bridie, or she wears glasses. Like
she's Irish.
yeah,
Yes.
like come on, guys.
yeah,
Right.
she's
Yeah.
Like, they'll figure it out for themselves, I'm sure. So yeah. But, I mean, I've never been offended by anything. Or like if somebody says something and they're like, oh wait, I meant something, like I'm not offended by anything else, but some other people might be offended, so I would use this term or something, but I don't take it. I don't take anything offensive. I'm like, it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's great. I appreciate that you come at it like that, because you're right. I think back to like before I had my kids, I would not have known what to say because I had no experience with any hearing loss. Like I said, I really never met any deaf adults with hearing loss ever before I had my first child who, was profoundly deaf at 2 months old and got cochlear implants at 11 months old. I would not have known the correct terms, right? I would have probably just known the terms like whatever, like popular culture said, like whatever I would have heard. And so I try to think about that. It sounds like you're kind of on the same page as like, I probably would have used the wrong term too if I hadn't known. And I just like know now because I'm in this world because of my kids. But if I wasn't in this world, I wouldn't know. I probably wouldn't know how to, interact with adults with hearing loss or kids with hearing loss. I wouldn't know about hearing aids, cochlear implants, Bajas, that there are all these different things. And so that's why I, like you guys try to educate openly and not get so caught up on the vocabulary. I think that's a really important thing that you guys are talking about, just so people will feel good about coming up and asking you questions, because you're right, if you kind of like shut it down, they're like, oh, we can't come. And you want to keep like educating. You want to keep, because I think it makes it better for the kids coming up and for, all of kids, all of other, adults with hearing loss, if we can just like educate and get that out into each of our communities, and it just kind of makes it better for everyone. And I am curious, Bridie, how is college going? You made it through. Kids are
I made it
you're
through
in
my freshman
college.
year. It was pretty good. It was a little rough at some point, but it was pretty good overall. I made some good friends, and I'm really excited to go back to see my friends, but not the school part. But
Do you know what you're studying yet?
my
Have you
major right
decided?
now is kinesiology, to be like a sports physical therapist.
Cool.
So hopefully that works out. But yeah, it's going pretty good. I like it. It's a very small town, but it's okay. It's only an hour and a half away from home. So I would surprise my parents a couple times. Like, hey.
We're supposed to be empty nesters and they keep
Yeah.
returning to the nest unannounced.
Can I do my laundry? I don't want to pay $6, but yeah. But I like
Accurate.
being independent. I've always been a very independent person, and I think I like it being more independent. Next year I'll be in my own apartment, so I'll get to like cook for myself and just like, I'm excited. I love college, being independent. Love being home too.
Can I just
Being home a lot, but
yeah. Can I just tell you that I live near my mom too, and I'm 37 with 3 kids, and I still have my mom come over and fold my fitted sheets because I
don't know
cannot
how to do it. I don't know how to do it, but
every time she comes over, I literally, if I know she's coming over, I just save them for her. And I'm just like, hey, can you come fold these things real quick for me? So it literally doesn't end. And I'm prepared for that with my own kids too. She still, and now she helps with my kids. So
yeah.
it is being a mom is lifelong. I am learning, but I would love to, talk Bridie a little bit. I know that parents, it's the summertime, parents are getting ready to send their kids off to college. They're nervous about it because you're not under their house anymore. How did you feel about being in college, having to, advocate for yourself, which it sounds like you're already, pretty comfortable with? Did you need any supports in college in your class? What are things that parents and their kind of like rising college students, might want to think about before they get to college in August?
Yeah, well, all through like grade school, I think I was in like every single 504 IEP meeting. And once I got to like middle school, I was kind of leading them myself, and my parents were just there. They
That's
would
great.
put some info in, but I would pretty much always kind of advocate for myself, which I think was really beneficial once I got to college, because my parents were like, you're kind of like, you're on your own for advocating. I'm not going to call my mom up to talk to my professor for me. But my school does have a program called Arrow, which is accessibility resource officers, something like that. I don't know. It's nothing like specific, but you can get certain accommodations. So I had a few, but in college, like you pick where you sit. So one of my accommodations in school is towards the front of a classroom, away from a door or air conditioning. But I do have accommodations at school, like extended time or written down due dates, so that I can't say that I didn't hear it. But yeah, I do have a lot of that. And then my professors, I would always walk out, give them my paper, and then just tell them that I'm hard of hearing, and usually they went pretty good. And they'd be like, oh, I speak kind of soft, so you might want to sit in this seat, because I usually stand right here. But I mean, like, your professors are trying to help you. It's rather than like public school or whatever grade school you went to. Like, your professors are, their goal is for you to pass, most of them. But I think all my professors were pretty good. And then at the end of the year, they would just forget, and they'd be like, "Oh, I totally forgot you had hearing loss. Like I thought you just had these accommodations for something else." But yeah, I think that's.
Do you think like a little bit to add on to that? Bridie and I we both go to small schools, but hers is a state school and mine is private. And the kind of rules around what accommodations you can get at a private school versus a state school or a public school are different. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 504s are supposed to follow you through college, and at a private institution, that's not required. So, had she gone to a school like mine, while I love my school and they're pretty accommodating of things that other students need, they're not bound by those same requirements. And some schools are great about that, private schools and things, but because of the rules about them not having to follow that, I think it can be a little bit more challenging. But Longwood, I think, has been pretty good so far.
They have a lot of resources so that you don't really have any excuses to not pass the class. But they do their best, and I think it works pretty well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, from a parenting perspective, I do think it's important for families of children with any disability to kind of have something in place that's already existing when they're seniors in high school.
Even if it's just as like a guideline in college, like even if you can't bring it, to just say, "Hey, this is what I need. Like, how do I get this?" Like that's what, like, I think we called the school and they were like, "Oh, we have this." And then I got to move in like a week early with the program and meet other people in that program.
Okay.
For a bunch of different things they needed. And I got to move in early, which was great.
So the form that we had to fill out for Bridie had questions like, does your child have a current IEP or 504 plan? We provided a copy of that. The questions were, for each accommodation, how did you use it? And so again, if you're walking into college without an IEP or a 504 plan, I would imagine it would be harder to get accommodations because you don't have something that's kind of, this is what we've been, accustomed to, this is what we're used to, and this is how it's benefited our student. So that's something for families of high schoolers to consider, is if you're thinking of dropping your 504 plan prior to senior year, you might want to rethink that, only so that you have, even if you end up having a 504 plan with accommodations that your child advocates, I'm not going to use those today, at least they're present when they're graduating to bring as an example into college.
Yeah. Oh, agree.
That is great advice for our parents to just keep that in place and to give their kids options. Like you said, the kids can always refuse. They don't want to use them. That's fine. They don't need them, but having that option is great, because I can imagine maybe some classes you would, some classes maybe you wouldn't. It might depend on the room. It might depend on the teacher, whoever. So they might change their mind also, get through like first semester and they're like, oh, actually like this would be helpful. Yeah, so that's great advice. Thank you. And Bridie, I know that parents would probably also want to know, do you use any like technology to help you wake up in the morning? Like, what are some things that parents can help their kids put into place? Maybe like start doing it during like middle school, high school, earlier, to like help kids be more independent and learn to be more independent.
Well, once I stopped waking up to my regular alarm in the morning, my parents got me a bed shaker called like a sonic bomb. Like, it was kind of
That's
crazy.
what I have for my rising third grader. That's what I have. It works really well, although he's a very deep sleeper.
Great, wakes me up. And I had to stop using it because my sister's room is right next to mine, and I would wake up
shake
a bit earlier
the
than
whole
her.
house.
The whole house.
Yeah.
Yep. So after that, I have an Apple Watch, and that just like vibrates in the morning, and that eventually wakes me up at some point. But
yeah.
Keyword there is eventually.
Yeah. I hate to snooze for like an hour, but that's just me.
She also has an addition in her room to help her with emergency things.
Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier I have a strobe light in my room because we did a test on like the fire alarm or the alarm in general, like without my hearing aids on. I was just sitting in my room, and then my parents came up like 30 minutes later, and I was like, when are we gonna start? And they were like, it's already over. Like we've already tested it, and they were like, oh, you can't hear it at all, even when you're like waiting for it. Then we got a strobe light, and then one day,
And we moved the siren. So there's one right
two.
outside of her
It's
room,
very loud.
which is also right next to
hey, at least you'll wake up.
her room. Yeah. So
But our alarm did trip one day, and it went off, and it's the same for like a burglary, a fire, like any emergency, it's all the same. And I was like, I don't know whether to run or hide under my covers. But and then I decided I was like, I'm just gonna hide here. If I smell smoke, I'll jump out the window. But and then I'm like, my eyes are like closed, but not really. So I'm like, is somebody gonna walk into my room and like murder me? And someone did walk into my room, and then they look over me and then they left. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just like escaped death. And then I hear my mom. And it was my mom. I was like, Mom, you have to wake me up. If that one, I was sleeping. So the strobe light
Yeah,
went off and you didn't wake me up. But I was not actually sleeping. Like I was fake sleeping. Like you should wake me up. And I don't think I was so terrified. Just like stopped breathing. And
yeah.
yeah,
So-
it works. But I was just really confused. It was like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very.
So we still, even now, are still figuring out technology and how to use it to protect our children,
Yeah.
to educate our children. Yeah,
Mhm.
never ending.
Yeah, woke me up, but maybe next time someone can just tell me what it is. But I guess that's but yeah. But I do. That's all I really use.
Okay.
Yeah. my
Yeah,
dad
that's, I
watched.
mean, that's helpful for parents to know about. And I'm assuming that you're probably, as you're like getting an apartment, going to be implementing like these things into your
Yeah.
apartment
I have to warn my
too.
apartment mate about that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be the bigger conversation, not having the things, but like
Yeah.
if you have apartment mates being like, the thing that go off is really loud.
Yeah. And I did have a roommate or 2 roommates in the beginning of the year. I ended up with single, but in the beginning of the year I told both of them, I was like, hey, like the RA already knows to like bang on our door and like unlock our door if there's ever an emergency. But like just so you know, if you don't wake me up, like could you do me a favor? Wake me up. And they were both like cool about it. We never had any emergencies. I have one drill. I heard it and I was like, I would never have woken up to that. It was like during one of my classes. And it just says, there's an emergency, leave the exit. It's not even like an alarm. I was like, okay. So once I was in a single, I made sure my RA would like, please wake me up if something happens. But yeah, but there were accommodations in my dorm. There was like a doorbell that says hard of hearing or like blind person in for those dorms, but I wasn't put in one of those. But I guess there was a strobe light in there. Yeah. Or a noise for the visually. I don't know. I only know my hard of hearing terms, but
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. These are really great things for parents to start like thinking about and helping their college students like start thinking about and start getting. And how did you feel, Valerie, about sending your girls off to college? Did you feel
You know,
like they were ready? Did you feel confident? How'd you
I
feel?
felt confident. I mean, yes, they're really, really good girls with some really great heads on their shoulder. But just like any parent that's sending their child off to go really start navigating the world without you right there frequently, it is there is an anxiety that goes along with that. But I am grateful that they do, they're smart girls, they're kind. Bridie is a friend making machine. Mary Claire is a friend making machine. So socially, I knew that they would both do well. So it really, and they also chose some fairly safe places to go to school. So we really did a lot of research into what school would be best for both of them. And with Bridie, we asked that extra question about accommodations for students with disabilities. And there were some schools that had a better track record and offerings than others. So I'm excited that they're here, they're college students, they're living their best life. And but it's been a journey, and it's a journey that continues.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. perspective. I know a lot of parents are nervous about it, especially their kids with hearing loss, because it does come with a little bit more, and even how their kids are going to do, advocating for themselves, talking about their hearing loss, getting other people to understand. But yeah, it sounds like you guys have done such a great job and I love it. I know we are at the end of our time, but I didn't want to leave without just letting parents know about your most recent book. I would love to know the girls. How do you girls feel about your mom's books? Everybody else loves them. I talk to parents all the time that love your books, but I would love to talk a little bit about your newest book, how that one came about.
Yeah, so
where
we
people find it.
published in the thick of COVID, Pat a Pillow, which is based on our family's experience with discovering hearing loss and coming to terms with that. And it was a family project. What are your thoughts on it, girls?
I like to tell people I'm the star of it because it's written through my eyes.
Yeah.
Not me though, but
Yeah, they're not shy about that. So the story is narrated by a snarky older sister who sees all the things that the parents didn't notice. And what I love about that perspective is it does remind, I think, readers that siblings have a seat in the car of this, where we're all in it together. And so from her perspective, I just love the way that it really gives the story through the lens of an older sibling that is watching all of this unfold. What do you think about it, Bridie?
I mean, I'm glad that it's out there. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's a book about you and like your experience," but I really don't remember any of it, and I'm sure I put a lot of work in to get to where I am today. But I kind of consider it more my parents' story, because like they're the ones that kind of went through the quote unquote bad parts, even though none of it's really bad. And the tough parts, I was just kind of there. So I mean, it is like me, about me, and like I'm the one with the hearing aids, but I don't really consider that part my story. I think it's good for other parents to see that too. That's not the end of the story.
Yeah, it was written, as a tool to help families uncover and tap into some of the emotions they might have been struggling to come to terms with. It is a little bit of an emotional roller coaster, where the disbelief, the denial, the testing of the hearing with stuff you have at home. I mean, all of these things that we did are part of that. But then at the end, we see a snarky older sister who doesn't really have a lot of empathy for her younger sister who's really annoying. All of a sudden you see her becoming protective and excited when she sees her younger sister developing language skills that weren't there in the first place. So there's a lot to unfold, but Pat a Pillow has really, I think, helped to highlight the topic of late onset hearing loss and late identification, and the fact that children can lose their hearing at any age and any stage, and it can have pretty significant impacts on their language development. And that's really the mission that our family is on. It's educating the world that we need to be on top of children's language all throughout early childhood. And when in doubt, check out hearing, because if that is part of the equation, ignoring it is not going to do anything to benefit the child. We need to know a child's current hearing status and then make decisions based on that.
I do think it's become, this is kind of a slight side story. I do think that the book has become a part of all of our kind of lives beyond just like when we're home. At school this past year as a junior at my school, we go through ring night where you like earn your class ring. And part of that is what are called call outs. So someone on campus will say like something and you're big creates them. And one of my call outs this year, when I was earning my ring, was if someone across campus said, "Look, Mary Clare, it's a Pat a Pillow," that my response had to be, "That is not a Pat a Pillow." So like even my friends at school know the book and know the story. But I think it's become part of like all of our lives beyond just when we're home or on, book events or book tours. So
yeah, and I love that the whole family can like read this together, because it kind of speaks to the child with the hearing loss and the siblings, and kind of like brings it all together. So it's a really great kind of together family book to read, to your kids to kind of understand both sides, honestly, to it. I love it. Where can people find your book and you,
Yes.
Valerie?
So the easiest way to find me is online at valeriejamesabbott.com. And my personal email address is valeriejamesabbott@gmail.com. So we kept it pretty easy. And Pat a Pillow can be found in most bookstores and certainly on Amazon. So Barnes and Noble, Amazon. For a while it was in Target, which is crazy to think that our book was available through Target. Yeah, and it's also available in Spanish, which is absolutely wild. That
That's
yes, the Pat a
fantastic.
Pillow is also in Spanish.
Wow, that's so fun. Well, thank all of you for coming on the podcast today, chatting. I had so much fun getting to know you guys. You are such a fun family. If you can, and this is open for anyone or everyone, leave parents with one last piece of advice for raising their kids with hearing loss, what would it be?
To remember that children with hearing loss, children who are deaf, children who are hard of hearing, or really children with any disability are children first. They're children first. And to enjoy this time, especially of early childhood, with them as much as possible, but that they're children first.
Love that. Bridie, Marie Claire, do you guys have any thoughts from your perspective?
I kind of agree with that. I would say also, don't set limitations on what you think your kid can do. Because I think
They will
my
challenge
parents thought that they had limitations or assumed that Bridie couldn't do some things, and Bridie was like, watch me, and went and did them. So your kid is with hearing loss is just as capable of anything as a kid without.
I would say probably it's not their personality trait, whatever is going on. Like my mom said, we're kids first. And to kind of also embrace what it is and make it normal in your own household, and that it's really not that deep. It's just something that's going on. Yeah, I don't know. It's like normal in my life because my parents made it so normal around the world. Like, I don't know, my mom used to explain it to me like, oh, she wears glasses. Oh, you wear hearing aids. I'm like, oh yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you coming on the podcast today. And thanks for your words of wisdom for the parents. I know that they're really going to appreciate it too.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.